Morning. This is a response to a video by Gratex called Sentience Too Precious to Exist, claims Sentience, newspaper headline. Okay, I've made some notes here. Gratex. Pessimism. People don't call me a pessimism in real life. Maybe I come off like that on YouTube. No, if anything, I'm cursed with optimism. I always tend to think things will come out for the best in this, the best of all possible worlds, to quote Pangloss. So yeah, generally I'm not a pessimist. I mean, I entertain pessimistic ideas, or I visit that side of arguments frequently, but that doesn't mean I'm pessimistic. Yeah, I assume that everything's going to end up fine, but I don't know where I get the idea from. So I don't know. As you say, it's psychobabble, so we don't need to dwell on that. But it's interesting that I'm coming off as pessimistic, at least to yourself, because as I say, most people in my day-to-day life don't regard me as that. And what else? You talk about subjectivity quite a lot, and that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, the video that you're responding to that I made was an appeal to subjectivity, to the use of the subject, to one's own subjectivity as a measuring tool. I mean, our subjectivity is the meter that we hold up against the world, isn't it? Really, and make judgments that at the moment can't be made by other kinds of devices. You know, there isn't a pain meter, there isn't a beauty meter. None of those things exist. We are the pain meters and the beauty meters, and sure, our machinery isn't calibrated with one another terribly well, but it is a real thing. You know, we can't deny subjectivity exists, and these subjects that are holding themselves up to the world and taking those measurements and experiencing those measurements as various colours of sentience is really important. And that video that I made was absolutely an appeal to the subjectivity meters. You know, would you, is how I was phrasing it, would you change places with that person? Is any life better than none to you as a subject, as a person who owns those rare devices? Okay, so yeah, chicken appeal to authority. Why have I written that down? Don't know, I can't remember. We're talking about chickens in cages. I don't know. Maybe the battery cage chicken thing isn't a great example. But I was just trying to think of an example of, would you trade places with that? Is that life better than no life at all? For you, it is always going to be a for you as a subject, which we all are. And you can't say without getting inside the chicken's head, it might be having a fantastic time. But to you, as a person, would you, measuring it from the outside, would you do it? I mean, I've met people in old folks' homes, and you probably have as well, and people who've been dreadfully ill, and they've said, yeah, I wouldn't change a thing, I'd still live my life. But I still think from the outside, well, I wouldn't. I respect the fact that you're enjoying yourself, but I don't want to live that life, thank you. And I would rather not have a life than live that life, even though you're telling me, probably honestly, that you think it's worthwhile. I'd rather not do it. In fact, I'd rather not live my life has been fairly happy actually, and healthy, and all those kind of things. Kids are healthy, I'm not starving. So, but I wouldn't live my own life again. Nietzsche does this thing about eternal recurrence, that a person can't be. A life is only worth living if it's a. I might be misquoting here, but he says something to the effect that a life is only worth living if you can honestly say that you would live it over and over again for eternity. And that might be quite a bit too far, but yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, even my happy life, I wouldn't want to live again. Don't know why exactly, but it's true. So that's the question I was asking. It's about subjectivity. It's about mobilising our own individual possessions of subjecthood, and putting that to the service of an evaluation, which is going to differ from all of us, and that's fine. Okay, value sentience. It doesn't exist. If you value sentience, it shouldn't exist. This is a complicated one. I mean, for me, and this is just my, I'm not sure an opinion, but this is where I'm at with my kind of understanding of sentience. And as I say, it's not complete by a long chalk. Is that sentience and suffering and pleasure are intimately bound up. There's no. This is the Antonio Damasio thing, which I know I quote at length. Is he says that we're not feeling beings that think. We're thinking. I beg your pardon. We're not thinking beings that feel, we're feeling beings that think. Feeling comes first. If you take the feeling away, the thinking disappears. We just become computers. There is no sentience without feeling, and feeling is ultimately grounded in things like pleasures and pains, and all of the more complex experiential engagements that we have. So sentience and pains and pleasures can't be disentangled. So you kind of have to, I think at least, you kind of have to talk about them as a bundle. So you can't. It's not just about saying let's value the sentience and keep that, but just get rid of the bad bits, because I don't think that's a valid. From my understanding of how sentience and consciousness works, at least, that's not valid. Which isn't to say we shouldn't alleviate suffering where we see it, of course, and I'll come on to that in a minute. Is sentience valuable? Okay. Yeah, we value sentience because we've got it. Is sentience, I suppose there's a question there, is sentience valuable in some other kind of way other than to those who possess it? I've written down. Because we do value sentience. We value it because we recognise that it comes with a baggage of pleasures and pains attached, and that it seems to achieve things. Whether ultimately those ultimate achievements are, I don't know, have greater significance than the local, I don't know, but we do value it for those kinds of reasons. But we are inside it, so of course we value it. It's almost like nationalism. It's like sentience chauvinism, as I referred to it in the comment section of my previous video. Of course we value sentience because we're in it. This is where we live. Does it have an objective value outside of that? I can't see it. I don't know. It seems like valuing itself is part of sentience, isn't it? I don't know. Anyway, what else? Oh, the one thing I thought was really great, you said, was about giving birth to your future self. I made a video about this some while ago, actually, called Being and Becoming, which is, I think you're right there, and I think that has been glossed over occasionally. Every day that all of us stay alive, we are allowing our future selves to exist. So there isn't. I think you're right in that there isn't that harsh distinction between suicide and the whole not having children thing, the antinatalism thing. I don't think it's quite as harsh as a lot of people paint it, and which I myself have recognised the difference there. There is a difference for sure, but it's not quite as harsh as I think it's often painted, and that being one of the reasons. We do make choices about whether Fred at the age of 65 is going to exist or not. I do kind of birth myself into existence. I think there's also significant differences as well, but that's perhaps for a different conversation. Become active, I've put at the bottom. Yeah, you don't know if I'm active in the battery chicken argument or not, Gratex. That's outrageous. I'm not going to go into that really. I'm just not. It just seems pointless. I used to work for the Ministry of Agriculture, what's called DEFRA now, as you might know. So I've seen a lot of that kind of shit. I've seen slaughterhouses and farms of all kinds, and my now vegetarianism is a direct result of witnessing all that kind of stuff. There's other contaminating factors, but I'm aware of the need to be proactive as well as pessimistic. I'm not pessimistic though, as well, but that's about it really, I think. That sounds very confusing to me. I hope it's not too confusing to you, but it's just generally, I'm not pessimistic, I'm optimistic. If anything, I have to restrain my thought and my logic to make sure it's not coloured by my optimism. If anything, I have to be careful with that, because I know what I'm like. I do think we tend to value... Well, actually, sorry, I was going to put this on the end. I wasn't going to talk about this right now. But actually, this valuing of sentience thing is really interesting in one way, because the video I was responding to was Professor Anton's. And either in that video or another one, he was talking about becoming a thing. I can't remember how he phrased it now. But it was like at a certain point of death, presumably, we become one with the rest of the universe. Or it becomes evident, not evident to us, but kind of evident, that we always were part of the universe, and being alive is a feeling of separation from that. He's talked about this before. We are all space, moments in space and time of the universe, that kind of stuff. which is quasi-mystical, but it's also completely real, isn't it? Yeah, we are things at all times, things with bits of awareness, and at a certain point the awareness will unravel and will become just things, which might be an achievement or might be a falling back, however you want to look at it, or neither of those things. But so on the one hand we value sentience, but on the other hand we value thingness and the inanimate and the fact that we are continuous with the rest of the universe, and that continuity reveals itself most clearly when we stop being sentient. Do you know what I mean? So there's an odd interplay of value there, you know. And I think it's kind of odd that antinatalists tend to say they value sentience whilst trying to recognise the problems associated with it and perhaps eliminate it, whilst people who are not antinatalists seem at least to value insentience and the ultimate achievement of thingness, yeah, and the silence of the universe.